Welcome to BeatsWithin. This is Cazal Organism. I'm Misa. I'm just gonna ask some questions. It's gonna be fine. This lovely creature, you're gonna be so into him and what he does, and he's an entity. Cazal Organism. Say hello.
Peace, y'all. I'm having a blast here in Texas, meeting great people, and it's been awesome so far. I thank you for letting me,
Absolutely.
come up with you and talk about some, topics that we just, the life we chose,
It's the life we lead.
Yeah.
It's a callback to a friend inside joke. All right, get ready, get comfy, get some snacks.
Yeah.
We'll see you in a minute. Cazal.
Yep.
Kaz. Do people call you Kaz ever? Is that
yeah.
I would think
commonly,
so.
Yeah.
But sometimes people don't want to be like shortened. Like I know somebody who let's say she goes by Lindsay, and she's like, never call me Linz. I know a person also that wants to go by first and middle name. Do you know anybody like that?
Nah.
It's a southern thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. That didn't make it to the west. Yeah.
Kaz, Cazal.
Peace.
Right.
Yeah.
Organism.
Yeah.
Today,
Yeah.
Cazal Organism. From California.
From California.
Which part?
Los Angeles, born and raised.
That's right. Do the thing. No, don't do the thing.
Nah, that's only when I'm playing out there. Yeah.
I want to know about growing up, Sunday house cleaning. I feel like we all do a thing on the side. We do a Sunday house cleaning, right? I'm not too far off.
Yeah.
What music was playing in the house?
Dude, okay. Jamiroquai.
Nice.
Gangstar.
Above the clouds.
Yeah, like some West Coast stuff too, like Daz and Corrupt. Weak and Freaky, like just all kind of stuff. My mom and my dad, they both had common themes with the music they enjoyed, but like they were always checking new stuff out. Like my aunts especially would bring weird alternative stuff, just alternative to what we were used to. My father, he's fairly like, hip hop, funk records, a lot of Cameo, Earth, Wind and Fire and stuff like that. My mother, she was R&B, hip hop and stuff. But my aunties though, they kind of like started switching our whole family onto like, Jamiroquai, Herbie, and just kind of hitting us with like
getting some deep cuts, just kind of
deeper, yeah. And so as they bring in new stuff to the house, and then that just kind of goes into the gumbo, like what we were just playing around the house. So that's kind of that's crazy. Sunday cleaning, because I was clean day.
What kind of R&B was your mom really listening to?
She was on like John B.
Hell yeah,
shit
John
like
B.
That.
Oh
like,
my God.
Music, Soul Child when he first came out, and her and my dad kind of both really enjoyed like Dwelle.
Oh.
Yeah. Which was cool because my father, he was talking about Dwelle. Like my dad, he played a lot of Slum Village, and those cats kind of came up together. So like a lot of Detroit sound, East Coast sound.
Tell me some more, love Slum Village. Just want to say love these right now. And I realized last night you played like it was a sample from Fantastic, I believe.
Yeah.
And I took some CBD gummies, legal. Got a little high, little bit, and I was late to yell out Fantastic, and I think I was going to be the only one in the club who did it. I was just like, it was like a second, I was like, Fantastic. But I noticed, now tell me about Detroit. I love Detroit. Tell me about Detroit.
Oh man, it means a lot to me. Like, I think my first memories with music as a child is a few years old was like my dad would have me in the backseat with him downtown. I think he was going to buy jewelry or something. And I just remember Once Upon a Time off that Fantastic Volume 2 was playing. And I was like, damn, like I really like sound. Like as a toddler, I'm hearing this song, I'm like, I really like sound. And so my first moment like realizing that about myself was to Slum Village. Obviously my father, he played me a lot of East Coast stuff, but like I think that medium that Slum and those cats were like cultivating between like the gritty hardcoreness of the East Coast stuff with like the funk elements of West Coast rap and just kind of
right in the middle,
presenting it with this new flavor. Like it was just huge. And as I got older as a kid, like what they were doing kind of started trickling over to the East Coast guys. I remember G Unit started kind of going that route of like unquantized snares and stuff like that. And then West Coast, the funk just kept getting more and more exaggerated as I was like when I was a kid. So I feel like definitely like Battle Cat and guys like that on the West were checked in with like the whole, you know, SB Dilla camp. And then once he kind of left and did his production work with all, you know, everybody on his catalog of stuff, like that sound just started reaching out to other cities, other countries, and that was just like one of my favorite things to, you know, we didn't have social media back then, like we just saw it happen, like, oh, there's this new song from some artist in Europe, and it kind of like it swung the hell out, and you're like, okay, like that's JD's influence. And we're seeing it that way. We're not like seeing it as like retweets. And I feel like that was just kind of cool to witness. Yeah. And how sound can just kind of spread geographically. Yeah.
And I want to talk to you about that because you're coming full circle with something that I had heard a while. But first, I want to talk about, you know, you mentioned no social media. I was listening to a true crime podcast, and what are you gonna do? Okay, and sometimes I enjoy a nice true. You're a murderino? I'm sure she is. And they were discussing a murder of a kid in Atlanta, who was like, you know, clearly had been murdered out. Like, and they found his body in the woods. It's an awful situation. They're trying to piece together what happened that night. He has a backpack, and they're like, he's got a lot of tapes in his backpack. I guess he was going to a party. And I was like, actually, no, that's just what we did. We carried our fucking tapes everywhere. And I'm sure maybe for your generation it was like CDs, but it's like, you know, that's what you did. You weren't just going to a party. It was everywhere you go.
Yeah, my parents had a gang of tapes. Like, we had those tape Bibles. And I remember one time, like, my first, like, hard discipline was because I was, like, a kid, and I was trying to flip 36 chambers off the tape, and I kept fucking my dad's tape up, and he had to keep getting 36 chambers over and over again, because I was just a kid trying to like fuck with it in the tape machine.
And he's not gonna stop that. He's
and I was like, yo, you gotta stop fucking with my woo shit. Like, what can I do? Like,
so he's encouraging. He's like, I see. And I love this, and I see it.
Yeah, like he knew I was doing it, so it wasn't like he couldn't have just stopped me in real time. Like it was after the tape was already fucked, then he'd be pissed, you know what I mean? Like,
he's like, I gotta know about 20 times when I should start to plan to get a new one. He should bought them in bulk, actually. That's his bad. He should have bought them in bulk.
Could.
Now, the thing with the Detroit, you were mentioning about sound spreading and going across the country. I remember looking into, you know, like how Dylan and Madlib got together, being in Detroit and California. Absolutely. The story that you're talking about, like, you know, it starts to spread. People are like, hey, I think that you would really like each other. It's what they kept hearing. And they're like, all right, we'll just come down and hang out. And they're like, besties. And so, you know, just loving to hear that there's the theory of, right, like how the music spreads, even like without the internet, you're still gotta like go, cousin's gotta show somebody something. Yeah. Another cousin's gotta show somebody else something else, you know what I mean? It just gotta travel that way.
Yeah. I mean, that thing was huge just growing up. Like, I remember I had a babysitter who would watch us, because my father, he would be out performing and stuff. My mom, she'd be out doing stuff, working. And we had a babysitter, my sister and I, that she, on, you know, through the week, she would go to, like, I didn't know what it was at this point in my life, but like Low End Theory, Sketchbook, and she was bringing back like Code 9 shit from Europe and like Warp releases. I'm just like, yo, this shit is fucking hard. You know what I mean? Like, all this bleep bloop shit is fire, like, you know what I mean? And like, as I grew into a teenager, like that shit kind of became central, like, to like just the influences I was observing at that time. After like becoming a teenager, I was like, okay, I want to do music, and I don't want to rap necessarily. Like, I want to be the dude that like makes the sounds and shit. Like
I want to bleep bleep bloop.
Yeah, and I want to like put the snares in these weird places and shit. Like I was really fascinated with that, and like when she was bringing those sounds to our attention as kids, like I was like, whoa, this is like, kind of feels like rest in peace. Like this, I feel like Jay would have been messing with those kinds of ideas and incorporating it. Yeah, because he comes from Detroit, and in Detroit there's a legacy of techno music.
Yes.
And that's huge. You talk to, like, I'm good friends with a lot of those guys now. Hip hop cats, house cats from Detroit, like Dez and Moody and them. But they'll tell you, like, Detroit is techno.
Yes.
It's a very technological city, and you have
the metal sounds
the industry,
coming right.
all
Absolutely.
these industries, hard physical labor and working with machines. And I feel like that would have been natural for him, particularly, to kind of get into those at some point,
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I feel like, low end and all that stuff, as I got to becoming a teenager, I'm like watching this shit on YouTube every week. Like, it's, Devin, who I need to see a set, because I'm a kid, I can't just go up in there, Right. I'm watching this shit on YouTube on my mom's computer and shit, like, oh my God. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And just, okay. So not only is it swing and these filters, but now we're like talking about sound in the left ear versus the right ear. And how to make shit float in a 3D space. Yeah.
Love this. I haven't heard with headphones. Now that I'm hearing you talk about this, like I'm waiting for some ear treats. They're gonna happen, little ear treats, because that right there, first was introduced to it in Madlib's Blue Note shit. And he does track 7. He takes the panning and he goes like when there's like a. And I was on mushrooms on a train to Chicago. It should have been a 22-hour train ride. It ended up being like a 28-hour train ride. Take up a whole seat, ate a bunch of mushrooms, listen to that on repeat, and I was like, this dude's fucking wild. Yeah. One of my favorite albums.
Him too, like Madlib. I remember my dad, he had homies from like 805, and they would give him CDs with like Madlib remixes before they were gonna come out 10 years later, you know what I mean? And we're playing this shit and we're just like, God, like, how is this shit so raw and so progressive at the same time? Like, how is it? And so, like, as a kid too, just watching those two unite from different cities, Madlib on the West Coast and Dilla from Detroit, it was like, this shit, like, shit, like, it's Avengers type shit, like, as a kid, I was tuned into that.
Power couple. So it's a team. That's a fucking, and very true. And it is wild that even though, like, they're, like, there's similarities that they have, and also such an advanced style of production, but there was definitely similarities in production never have met. People are like, y'all got it, and then they do. And then now we have, the gift of what they've given us, and Madlibs will go into catalogs later. Yeah, solid. Love Detroit. There's a few things I want to talk about here that you brought up, but I've been there a couple times. I wanted to live there, almost did at one point. Almost died there. I don't want to do any stereotypes, but I did all. I was kind of scary. I was like, never been scared in my life. I'm still fucking love it. Anybody who has talked to me, they're like, no, at some point I'll find a segue to talk about Detroit. And I love techno, huge fan of techno. So like it's just the whole thing. I was there, I house dance and I break dance, and so like, but more so house dancing now. Love it. Not the what's that thing? The shuffle. Fuck that thing. Talking about good.
The real house.
Yeah, like Detroit lifestyle. And so I was dancing there with this guy, and he was a Detroit native. He's driving me around. We went for some conies. Love Coney. And he was like, these were all like abandoned. He's like, we would throw, like, there was raves that were here. There'd be 3 levels. He's like, a techno room, like a house room. He's like, and then like the rappers like would be somewhere in there too. And he's like, I'm looking at Eminem in a circle and shit. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna see like T3 and stuff like out there. Like, and I was like, that sounds amazing, because I still go to raves. I love them. Not the terrible ones. The good ones. The warehouse raves.
A lot of people don't know, but like SV, all those dudes were like jit cats. You know what I mean? Like, that's another thing. Like,
I did not know that, and I just got into. I texted one of my friends. His name was Footmerk, and like he became like a really well known like jit and juke DJ and producer. And I looked when I was downloading the techno from the band camps, as you do, and I was like, hold on, this is like over 140, but it's like techno and it's sick. And I was like, what is this? And I was like I watched a JIT competition, fell in love. I was like, I had no idea this was going on. And I am foolish for not looking at this sooner, but I am here now. And that dance, that culture, that production, that music, it also just knowing that it's like kind of still underground, and it's been going on for decades.
Absolutely, yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
tell. It's a secret. Don't tell. This is just for us.
Just
For
for
us.
the head.
Don't blow it up. Don't blow it up with like light up hula hoops like we all did fucking techno in house.
The ill shit with techno is like, and as it applies to like Detroit and outward, is like, I've seen on YouTube, you gotta find it, it's like a video of this show, a TV show called Detroit's New Dance Show. And they played Kraftwerk for the first time in the US on national TV. And it's just a bunch of people like on some Soul Train type shit, you know, you can tell they're doing the lines and all that type of shit. And they're listening to this and they're like, you see it for the first like minute and a half, they don't know what the fuck to do. You know what I mean? And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, I see now how Detroit not only became so pivotal to techno music and house music, but like why the dance element came so strong out of there too. It's like so many styles started from Detroit and spread out from there, you know what I mean? Like that parallel, not just the sound, but the movement to it. Yeah, like very ill to peep that.
And the Northern Soul, like wasn't aware of Northern Soul, like, and I was like, I did until like, I mean,
That's a whole another 50 years.
It was probably like 10
shit,
years ago, and I was all like, hang on, because I just had always associated soul music with, you know, the South, and I was like, there's Northern Soul. I was like, oh, that's not gonna be good.
Nah.
Shit's so good.
Dude.
Ooh, I felt like my chakras open, my chakras. I'm sorry, I don't want to appropriate, but you know what I'm saying? Like it was like the Amelie scene where just like the light shoots out of her after she lets the blind man through the fucking crowd.
I
love that movie.
Word.
Fucking the soundtrack also, Jan Tiersen. Oh fuck, dude, yes.
Yeah.
Spreading the techno, there was a thing in there that I wanted to talk about with you, but let me I'll just go over here. So I love that you, when we're doing the house cleaning, you went directly into your, you know, what your mother's music was also, because I wanted to talk a little bit about her. In that. So we covered that. I wanted to go back to the jazz part. Let's go back to the jazz part, because I was reading an interview and he said other placement jazz, right? As I think that was like a word that you had used, but you're talking, I think, about abstract jazz with the different drum measures and
like fusion stuff.
Yeah,
because my aunties, they would go to like the dance clubs in LA, Conga Room, couple spots, and they would just cut up and dance. And at a lot of these parties, you know, they'd be playing obviously like the Jamiroquai shit that was coming at the time, brand new heavies and stuff like that. But then they're actually sneaking in like Tony Allen, and they're sneaking in like just all these different fusion era adjacent sounds that's like formative to, you know, that modern stuff that they were doing. And every time my aunt would watch my sister and I, like, she's just playing all this shit too. We're just like, yo, this shit is so fire. Like, you know, like, as kids, me and my sister, like, yo, this shit is so fire. Like, there's 80 seconds of completely different chord changes, and the bass lines going all over the place. Like,
yeah.
And that shit was formative too. And like, I remember, I think the first CD I ever bought with my own allowance money, chore money, was Outkast, Love Below speaker box. And I bought it obviously because everybody had knew the Hey Ha shit. But I'm listening to the CD and I'm getting through it on the first listen. And there's this one joint on that record, and it's literally like no rhyming. It's just Andre 3000 with a drum machine and like some cat on piano playing like McCoy Tyner shit for like 4.5 minutes. And it's a cover of My Favorite Things on some like fusion shit though, with like drum and bass, jungle drums. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like, how do you sneak this in on the same record as Hey Ya? And like, I know you like to shit like, yo. And I find this shit, I'm like, yo, like I'm banging this shit every morning. I get up and I put it in a DVD player with headphones and shit. 6, 7 in the morning, just listening to this. Like, you know what I mean? Like 180 BPM, My Favorite Things. I was like, what is this shit? You know what I mean? Like, I was just like strung out off that shit as a kid. Like, and so I'm trying to show my aunties this. I'm like, I know they know this type of shit. Like, I need more shit like this. You know what I mean? Like,
find this.
Yeah, like,
go forth. I'm gonna go to school.
My aunties,
my
aunties were the algorithm. They were Shazam. You know what I mean? If I said I like this type of shit, they're like, here goes 8 albums to go fuck with.
Damn.
And that was super sick as a kid because, like, you know, the internet wasn't there where, like, there wasn't suggestion tabs. Like, you just had to fucking find shit. And then that kind of started growing online with, like, the torrents and shit. It was super easy. You look for one song and then find, like, 30 other songs that were equally as fire. And that was, like, you know, getting into the digital stuff.
Yeah.
But my aunties, man, they really kind of fostered that, just, like, finding shit that I probably wasn't going to find.
Is it your dad's side or your mom's side?
My dad's side.
Okay, so your dad truly is the family music. I've looked up. You guys can do your research. It's yeah. So like also, you know, like his sisters are, you know, as well. They're involved. They're in tune. That's a pun, right? I don't really make them, but they're into it, and they're still finding. Like, are they still? They're still in love?
Yeah.
Okay. I hate asking personal questions. I don't know why I've been doing these interviews, but I'm always worried I'm gonna ask something. They're like, whole family blew up, and I'm like, when I was 4. I don't know, you know. So sorry.
No,
they're great. They're still great.
My one auntie now, she can't go out dancing no more. She got to bum me and shit.
I get it.
You know, my other auntie, you know, they're doing fine, but you know, they can't be out in the club how they were.
Definitely, but they're still. Are they looking? Do they have Spotify's? You set them up on Spotify.
And now it's like
digging around?
Now it's like, yeah, we're showing them shit. Like my sister and myself, like yo, you gotta check out. We'll tell them some shit, and then 2 years later, like, yo, have you heard of DJ Harrison? I'm like, yeah, I tried to tell you about my nigga like 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, what's up?
Like, you don't know nothing.
Yeah.
Like, my dad would try to roll like a joint for me today, and I was like, fuck, I know how to do it. Like, not realizing that. You know? Yeah, like, you have 30 years on me or whatever, I should let you roll me a joint.
Yeah.
I roll him better, though. I won't tell him that. I'll let him have his pride. He's not going to watch this. Cut that out. Yes, and you're learning. I love jazz. I do. I love jazz. Now, here's something that I got into recently. Didn't know. A little bit of soft jazz. George Benson, the God.
Dude, yeah.
Lonnie Liston Smith.
Dude, yeah.
I was like, hold on. I think I like a nice jazz guitar. Oh yeah, girl. Our executive producers over here, like, just like, what bitch?
Like, they don't know that side of you.
Like, Christina wants it to be a 160 BPM. She's like, is it soft jazz at 160 BPM then?
It exists.
I love there's everything for everything. Tell us, send it over.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it out.
I mean, it's not 909 drums, but it's 160.
I was in the forest with some friends on some MDMA, and I was playing a nice playlist for them, and my soft Lonnie Liston Smith, Jack Wilkins, Jack Wilkins, right? He did Right Play.
Both, yeah.
Oh shit! And George Benson come on, and like we were fucked up on drugs, and like, what is this? I'm like, I'm into soft jazz now. Yeah, so like,
but that's what it makes the most sense. Like, like you'll hear it the first couple times, and you're like, yeah, shit is flavor, but then like you're off some shrooms with the homies, and you're like,
I like that.
Like, yo, this shit is like got my ears pollinated, beat, you know? Like that's how I feel. Like your ears just start secreting shit. You're like, that's how I feel.
Alice Coltrane, Journey in. You know what I'm talking about. I can sing. First time I heard that, I was like, who the fuck is this? And just like looking at it, I was like, oh shit. I was like, Alice Coltrane. I wonder if she's related to John.
Yeah, she's actually the homie Flying Lotus's auntie.
Wow.
Yeah. So we show Alice Coltrane the most love.
She's life-changing, life-affirming.
Yeah.
The queen of that.
That record with Carlos Santana as well.
I don't think I've gotten to that yet.
Illuminations.
Okay.
Check
I
it
will.
out.
Can't deny Carlos Santana. My dad did once. He didn't take my mom to a Santana concert. And she held it against him for fucking ever. And he was like, "You are a black magic woman." I agree. Respectfully.
I don't know that either.
Let's talk about frequencies.
Oh shit, okay. Yeah.
Sounds like I think that we're getting on the same page here, but you talk a lot about frequencies in your production, and you're really in tune with this. You're there, you're feeling it. I think that frequencies adjust, control, tap into the human experience. I think that frequencies are very important to the mind, to the spirit, to the mood. Tell me about putting these and how your intentions of putting the frequencies into the production.
Yeah, that kind of just started like when all the new age spiritual shit was like on YouTube real tough. Cause like I don't know, as a kid I saw like Da Vinci Code and shit and like movies like that. I was like, oh shit, I love esoteric shit. You know? So,
like I'm not, but this is my shit.
Yeah, like that shit, like it got me into also too, like as an Afro-Latin, to like really dive into like African spirituality and history on an archaeological, anthropologic level as well. Like, but with the frequencies, it kind of came about that same effort for me to just like kind of do, as they call it, knowledge of self, and kind of understand my people's role in history and how as an Afro-Cuban today mixed with like Eastern European from my mother, like how does this world work in a sense, like, you know, lineages and all that, making their way geographically through all kind of different, you know, forms and mediums. But in learning all that stuff, you know, I kind of learned about like frequency and tuning of music as it applied to like ancient Egyptian culture, and like how the pyramids and certain, you know, historical sites, not just in Egypt but in many places throughout the world, you know, a lot of the indigenous temples, you know what I mean, like a lot of these places held ceremonies that were like driven by frequency, you know, and that was like the medium to channel whatever you know, lessons or like alchemic kind of conduction and reception to these lessons. And like I was like, that's really crazy, because like as a kid, when you're learning like history and like just how we've been like fucked historically, you get so pissed.
Totally.
You get so pissed. It's a natural response, and I feel like that's behind a lot of great music through history as well. Just young people finding out how hard history has done their people, and just responding to that. But I found what kind of helped me deal with the anger was just messing around with the frequency stuff too. Just like, okay, I have this sample, and sure, I'm gonna play a bass line and maybe throw some extra chords on it, but just like, you know, what if I take everything and tune it to 520? What does that do? And how does that make me feel? And you know what I mean? And that's kind of how in high school, my first record, like I wanted to just do an entire thing at 432. So I would tune everything. And even since then, like all my work, I'm never really concerned about like, is my shit 440? Is it 432? Is it 528? Because like I work with a lot of analog synthesizers and hardware. So I'm just like, okay, this sample is warped the fuck out. I'm not even gonna try to find the tune. I'm gonna just turn all my synths to be on key with this shit and just get it in. Like I'm not even checking really. So like it's gotten to that point now. It's like I'm not even trying to do it. It's just how I work. Like just
you're tapped in. You're in the flow. You've absorbed.
And that's what's cool too.
Conducting.
Yeah, that's what's cool too about working with like source material and samples. As much as I play keys and there's a lot of synthesis on my music, like part of what's cool about it to me is like if you find a record, a particular record on 8 different mediums, they're all gonna sound different. And so like you find one, and that one might be like a tone and a half out of key from the actual pressing, but it's like, damn, that shit hits. You know what I mean? Like shit is kind of warping, and like these frequencies are expanding literally on a 3-dimensional level. And that's I think over the years just kind of that's become like a normalized part of my shit. Like I don't even bring up tuners. I'm just like, okay, it sounds right, cool, let's do it. Yeah.
And that's good, right? Because there is I've talked about this in a previous interview, you'll know, watchers of this fan piece.
Watchers of the series. Subscribers.
Watching me change and bloom before your eyes, and with these lovely people who create. Okay, I gotta stop. Cut that out.
Frequencies?
CBD gummies, just kind of good.
Smart mode, yeah.
Toxic perfectionism. I was going to talk about that. Because sometimes people are like, it's not perfect yet. I can't release it. And I've seen bodies of work never make the light of day.
Nah, I mean, that's something I've tried to really work on because, yeah, I've been at that point too. Like, I'll make bodies of shit and just end up, man, I never really got it right. Fuck it, on to the next thing. I feel like everybody kind of goes through that. And especially people that really love their craft. Mm-hmm. Not every artist functions in the old-fashioned way of, okay, this month I'm gonna go to the studio and I'm gonna leave with a record. Like, I make shit every day, all day, and there's no intent necessarily as I'm making shit. That just kind of comes to me with time. But then there comes a time too, it's like, okay, I have a solid track list here. Mm-hmm. And now I gotta just shine it up and put the finishing touches on it. Like, that's one thing I feel like in this modern era, we all have laptops and we all have these softwares and shit. It's like easy to just make a gang of shit and not finish none of it. So like, that's one thing I've been very mindful of. It's like, I have songs that are like 6 years old and they've morphed several times. And then it's like, there's also that factor too of like, okay, I'll know when this is ready.
Yes.
And like, you know, then it's like, okay, let's do this. Let me sneak this onto this track list. Okay. Like, that's one thing I don't know. I feel like that's not advice.
Actually, you just illuminated something for me, right? Because I get like a anxiety. Like, there's two things you said that like I stick with this kind of anxiety about it. This one more, let's do the latter. When is, like you said, who you'll release something, but maybe you'll just know when it's right. Like, who's to say you need to rush and be so hasty? I usually am. I'm an Aries rising sign. Very.
My father is Aries.
Rising or is it?
No, he's Aries.
Okay,
Aries.
I'm a Cancer sun. I'm a Libra moon, and I'm an Aries rising. Okay. So your sun is like how you think you are, but your moon's like how you fucking really are, and then like your rising is how people see me. So everyone's like, oh, she's so fiery. I cry a lot.
Cancer.
Yeah, I'm very.
And Aries.
There's no
Aries,
ground.
Cancer be. I'm Pisces and my father Aries, so I see that shit.
You're simpatico.
Yeah.
What was your mother?
My mother's Taurus.
Okay, so the Aries and Taurus, all right, they still, there's the fire and earth there, they're kind of butting heads, I get it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, their split was like huge for me in the music. Yeah.
How so?
Well, when they split, I was like, I'm dealing with so much shit that just is different from what me and my sister know as daily life. And I'm like, well, none of this shit makes sense. How can I make sense of it for myself? And that's when I'm like, okay, this is what I do with this music shit. It's like 12, I think 11, I had an iPod Touch with like a little software on it. At 11, it was super minimal, just enough to put drum beats together and fuck with sounds. But I was like, yeah, just need to find a healthy way to deal with this, or this shit is gonna like probably.
Yeah, it's a lot for an 11-year-old. That when you're 11 to 12, that's when men they imprint in their DNA the emotional, what they were going through in that moment. They say that the people who experienced the Irish famine, I think like a generation later or something like that, they like had famine-like bodies. It's a radio lab. I can't remember what it was, but it was basically talking about genetical and emotional imprinting at a certain age, and when it's like when it happens for men, it was 11 to 12. A lot's happening, but you're also getting into music.
Yeah. And I feel like this shit saved my life.
Yeah.
Honestly, because it's not like I was acting out or nothing at all, but I feel like if I didn't.
You'd be vulnerable to.
I would have been vulnerable to getting into trouble. And I think it was just.
Oh, getting in trouble at 11's great. You just think you fucking know everything. You're just out there, like fucking Kate Winslet and Titanic every day.
I didn't feel that way.
I'm like, bro,
I don't
cigarettes.
know shit. I don't know shit. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
I don't know shit. I'm
an Aries rising. I'm
stupid.
Yeah.
I know I don't know shit, and I need to learn shit. And I feel like music just helped kind of put me in that position to just learn shit. Not just musically, but life stuff.
Put more focus on things, right? You got to start looking and picking things apart. You're just like you're doing with beats.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what you were saying about like, you know, like you'll know when it's ready, that's the other part I didn't think about too, is that like, yeah, you don't gotta feel, I always feel guilt and shame constantly. It's why I have anxious nightmares all the time. And like, you don't want to, you know, like I'm like, no, just push it out because I don't want to be the person that like, but now you're like, but there are some things that you will know when it's ready. And
Yeah.
I love that too. 4 years could be a good time, like enough time, right, for it to kind of develop and you to develop with it and add your tweaks and changes. It grows with you. I get this. This is beautiful.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And the cool thing too about production is like I might have a certain folder like of shit that's like really dope. But I'm like, I wouldn't really put this on my shit. Like, I don't know what I would do with it. But then one day an artist comes along and they're like, yo, play me some shit. I'm like, fuck it, play this. And they're like, let's bust on this. I'm like, fuck it, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, so there's that element too. And I understand with certain types of work, like that's not always that like a dynamic that's applicable to every type of artistic outlet. But that kind of helps too. Like, you just have shit that's really cool and you don't have any plans for it, but you know, some artist gets at you or they're in town and you're just playing shit.
Making stuff is meant for somebody else. Is it like you're giving it to each other where the energy exchanging?
That's another thing too. So like, I don't know. I feel like I used to really be pressed about trying to finish stuff, but now it's
you seem very aware of like what it is and what it could be and what needs to happen. I'm not worried about that. I think that you're doing the right thing here. You sound very aware of it. But you know,
it takes time too, though. Yeah, it takes time to be like comfortable with stuff like that. Yeah.
For sure. Some people may go their whole life and not be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Literally, age is nothing but a number, except for when it, you know, was the Leah R. Kelly thing. Age was definitely a number then. But other than that, it's just your time here. You know, like it's what you learn in that amount of time. You can compress it. You can draw it out to your last breath. You know, that's just what it is. It's life. Final thought. Final word here. What is the vibe?
Wow. That's, man, it's just, that is really just internal energy. It's just a reflection of whatever it is, wherever you at. Yeah, because a lot of times I'm working by myself, a lot of time I'm not. I'm working with friends and it's just like, well, if I'm in a scenario where it's 2 or 3 homies that we all do music, it's like, well, where do we all meet at this time? And it's just kind of, like, I don't know, I have this whole personal theory on like social harmonics as it applies to like the people that you get along with to various capacities. I see it on a spectrum that's similar to like music theory, but like, when it comes to that, it's like, if you're by yourself, it's just like wherever you at that moment, and then that comes out in whatever it is you do. Like I was having a really cool conversation with a visual artist, like a painting artist last night, and we were kind of just talking about the parallels between sound and you know, shapes, colors, and that whole side of it too. And just that kind of came up, like what is that thing that just makes you have to execute some type of art practice? And we kind of both were like, yeah, it was like wherever you at, like internally at that time. Yeah. And then with shows too, like, you know, now you're kind of creating, at least how I see it with sets, it's like you're like kind of creating a path of that essence for everyone else to like tune to. So it's like it starts somewhere, you go here, and you know, you try to take those people with you over there, and then you try to take them over there.
A cross-pollination.
Yeah, because that's how all those tracks start. It's like, I'm not thinking about other motherfuckers. I'm making that shit for me, you know what I mean? Like, all that shit I mean, like, I made that shit for me, and then now this is my opportunity when I'm presenting it live to like, okay, well, let me find where you guys and I meet in the middle point, start there, and then we'll just travel from that point. So like, yeah, that's in simple terms, like that's my definition of like vibe.
I couldn't have asked for a better answer. That was lovely. Cazal.
Misa.
I enjoyed this. Thank you
Likewise.
Good luck on your tour.
Thank
I
you.
hope you enjoy Texas.
Love it.
Don't like Dallas, but he'll be fine.
Yeah, I've heard a couple people say that.
And it's not like I'm being wrong. If you watch the movie, what is it, Harvey Harold? What is it? Anyways, he talks about it too. Okay, we're done. Thank you very much. Let's do the intro.